welcome to Provocative Conversations from Twice 5 Miles Radio. I'm your host, James Navé. My guest today is Deborah Domanski. Deborah is an opera singer, and I had the opportunity to meet Deborah at the 2025 Leaf Festival in Swannanoa, North Carolina. I quickly learned that Deborah was an opera singer. She wasn't at the Leaf Festival to sing opera. She was there with her significant other, David Lamb, and David was sponsoring two Navajo weavers from northern New Mexico near the Four Corners area. So Deborah was there with David and the Navajo weavers. I struck up a conversation with her and quickly learned that she sang opera and had traveled all over the world doing it. I found that very interesting. So I introduced her to Walter Parks, who was playing at Leaf, and they soon discovered they had a lot in common. Both were professional musicians. Turns out Walter's interest in old-time gospel songs, along with rock and roll and other kinds of genres, and Deborah's interest in opera overlapped. Walter had an opera song he had worked up for the guitar, so they agreed to perform together on the Leaf stage on Friday night, which turned out to be quite interesting. In this provocative conversation, Deborah unpacks how she and Walter were able to collaborate almost instantly and walk on stage and perform a really terrific piece that made everybody feel like they belonged. In addition to telling us how she and Walter collaborated, in this provocative conversation, Deborah and I talk about what it means to be a master, and you might be surprised at our conclusion. Might not be as highbrow as you might suspect. So now let's turn to my conversation with Deborah. We begin by me asking her to talk about her first experiences when she arrived at Leaf. So Deborah, you and your sweetheart David came to the Leaf Festival a few weeks ago. And when you arrived with David, you, like so many other people, really were taken in by all the activity at the Leaf Festival, the festive way people were going about life. And when I introduced you to my good friend Walter Parks, who was playing at the Leaf Festival, he was playing on Friday night. You all arrived on Thursday. I connected you with Walter, and I told Walter that you had singing chops. And I told you that Walter had singing and playing chops. And I thought you two would be a really great match. And it all started when you and David and a group of folks in our cohort were having dinner the night before. And I asked you if you sang, and you said, yes, I do sing. And then I introduced the idea of Walter. So what I'd like to start with is having you talk about the experience you had when Walter walked up to us. We were all having a little late lunch on the lawn, and I introduced you to Walter. How did you both know this collaboration, which did take place a couple of hours later, would work? What was going on in your mind? Can you give us a bit of a story about that?
Thanks. Well, I come to everything with total curiosity and with the idea of yes before censoring myself and saying, oh, I couldn't possibly do that. Oh, you're famous. Oh, I'm a totally different genre. I could have come up with all these kinds of things and really turned myself inside out. But what happened was when Walter and I met, we met on this level of yes. And we both said, well, let's see what's possible, what could be happening between your creativity, my expression, your expression, these words, this song, that key, this environment of the Leaf Festival, which is all about yes and curiosity and experience. So Walter and I met at that place, and it just worked. And I always do better when I get out of my own way. In this interview, for example, like I'm thinking, oh, there's some talking points I want to bring up. There's all kinds of things I want to talk to him. I want to ask him some questions about what he's up to and how maybe we could work together. And I'm thinking of all this stuff. And then I'm like, no, just let it go. Let's see what comes through. And as soon as I get out of my own way, the nerves calm, the download starts, whatever that is, whatever the connection you and I have, whatever that connection Walter and I have. Anyone I ever meet, it's about the connection more than it is the content or where we're going to go or what we're going to do. It's how do I meet you right now? And Walter and I found each other. And so he just started plucking out some chords and he's like, this is how the song goes. And he sang me a bit of the melody. He said, would you like to improvise something over the top of this? I'll give you a verse. Do you want to sing the words? Do you want to? And, several things went through my mind of what I could possibly do. He was singing in Italian. I could sing in Italian, or I could do an English translation in mirror form to his what he was doing, and or I could just sing this beautiful obligato line over the top that would be harmonizing and add texture to the song, or I could not use words at all and just sing oohs and ahs. And so all these things that came to mind, like I was planning for this interview, all of that came to mind, but then I just let it all go. And when I got up there on that stage, we met on a whole nother level, which is the level that I really love. This is like the collective consciousness where musicians, artists, creators meet and commune to create something greater than what our minds can create. It comes from the whole being, the soul, the body, the mind, whatever you want to call it. It's the wholeness of ourselves. And if we can create from there, possibilities are limitless. That I think that's what happened on stage when I went up there with him.
So, people listening to you describe this, you dropped in a few bits of information that might surprise them. Oh, we were singing in Italian, and you used some other words that one would not apply to folk singing, rock and roll, what you would expect on the Leaf stage or what you might think would be there. So, what were you up to? This was something a little different. Tell us what you did. What was it?
I'm an opera singer, classical trained opera singer, went to Juilliard, sang all over the world on some of the greatest stages. That's been my world for the last 25 years. Now I'm coming into this idea where I don't want to just get in front of an audience and be an entertainer. I want to engage the audience. I want to bring them into the story. I want them to be a part of the experience, not just sit back and say, okay, entertain me and I'm up here and you're down there, and I want to bring us together. We were improvising together. You have to be super present. So with my opera background, his gospel background, he chose this particular song, which is a Monteverdi piece, who was a composer at the turn of 17th century. Monteverdi basically invented opera. Walter created this piece all of his own that was based on this Monteverdi madrigal that I had not known before, but I'm very intimate with Monteverdi. I've done a couple of his operas. So I know the style, I know the genre, I speak Italian, not fluently, but I speak opera Italian. It was very comfortable to me to say, oh, yeah, definitely, I could definitely do that. If he came up to me and said, hey, will you sing this gospel song? I'd say, okay, well, yeah, I don't have a lot of experience in that, but let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. This, I was like, heck yeah, I could totally do that. And he knew that I could totally do that as well. So when he was singing this basically folk song from the 17th century, I knew exactly what would work because of my background.
So, you're touching on your background. You went to Juilliard. You've been on the stages all over the world. I remember when we were at the dinner on Thursday night, and I was telling you about Walter. I said, well, he might be at your level. He's played Carnegie Hall and Madison Square Garden. And you said, well, I played Carnegie Hall too. And I thought, then I said, well, you both will probably get along really well. What I would like to ask you to reflect on for people listening to this, in order to get to the point where you and Walter dropped in with great ease, and I was there watching it, and you stepped up on stage, and it seemed like you and Walter had been playing together forever. No problem.
Mm.
There you were. You were doing improvisational work. When you really let your voice out, you backed way back from the mic, and I could see all the skill that was there. Walter was cueing off of you. You were cueing off of him. In order to get to that level of ease, you have spent a lifetime working on this, as Walter has. Could you speak to the way practice and work and imagination and all of those elements can bring somebody to the place of ease. And I'm also curious for you to reflect on people who haven't had a lifetime of practice like you and Walter have, and yet they want to engage in some deeper practice. Just reflect a bit on the way that you go about that.
Wow, that's a great question. I think thousands of hours of cultivating my voice, studying the great works of history, all of that is in my background. So, yes, there is a level of skill and study and work. I can lean on that a lot. And I've studied a vocal technique that uses a lot of scales and turns and all kinds of complexities that I can draw upon and just drop them in a song. And take a little piece of that, little piece of that, and put it all together and make something I call improvisation, because I am drawing upon that knowledge that is so ingrained in the body that I don't even have to think about it anymore. And I wouldn't call myself a master by any stretch of the imagination, but that is the path to mastery. So I continue to study that every single day. I sing my scales, study new pieces of music. I am always expanding that part. But the other part that is really important to expand is the heart, of course, right? So we have to tune into ourselves, how we feel, how it makes us feel, and then express that however that comes through. It could be through words, it could be through voice, it could be through music, it could be through art, light, textures, all kinds of mediums, right? But the important thing is, how do we express our feelings? And when know how we feel, when we're connected to ourselves, when we're connected to the greater world around us, how we can bring that across in the most effective way. And sometimes that takes a little bit of engineering in our minds, but a lot of times you take the intellect out and let the heart and body sing. That is where true beauty comes from. That's what people want to connect with.
So, as an artist, you're saying you may take a while to be designated as a master, but as a practitioner of the process, the feelings that you get, regardless of where you are in that hierarchy of beginner all the way to master, those feelings can be achieved by anybody.
Definitely. And I believe everyone has this creative capacity within them. And finding that passion is the number one way to access your expression, your skill, your beauty, how you can communicate with others, how you can connect with others. If you're an artist and you're a singer or you're a poet or you're a storyteller or an actor, you're taking your participants, I'd like to call them instead of your audience, you're taking them through a storyline. They are experiencing this process with you. So you know what the end of the story is, but they don't know that. You don't want to necessarily give away the end of the story as you're telling it. They want to be part of, oh, here comes with this something we're weaving together. And so it's not about the product, it's about the process, being present with the process. If you're telling a story and you're just kind of reciting it, right, that's not effective. People don't come with you when you have something memorized and it's kind of by rote, like, okay, I've sung this song 100 times, I could sing it in my sleep. Where's the story? That's what we connect to. That's the process. That's being present with what you're presenting, right?
Yeah, and you give
Yeah.
me an idea. When we were sitting in Eden Hall watching Walter make his music, he was there on stage, and Walter's quite compelling. You can listen to Walter sing for a long time and be very happy that you're there. And then when he called you up, we were sitting there in our little group where you were. David was there, Paul, and I was there, and we saw you get up. And the moment you rose to go to the stage, we joined the story. We were part of that story. And when you stepped up and you did your work with Walt,
Mm.
clearly it felt good for you and it showed on your face. It felt good for Walt because he was smiling and taking it seriously, but at the same time having a bit of levity as the collaboration began. What I noticed in the audience where I was, people were looking around at each other and they were smiling. David
Mm.
reached out and bumped my fist. Paul giggled a bit. I was like, and I'm sitting there thinking, wow, look at Walter. Man, that is so great. And Deborah's up there too. And I was feeling very pleased with myself because I'd helped set it up, right? So
Yeah, it
we
is
were
great.
having this collective experience because the whole thing felt good. And when something feels good, what do you want? You want to do more of it. So
Mhm.
we were all enjoying the story. And that is I think what you're getting at. This is what is important.
Yes, exactly. Everyone was present in that moment. What I mean by present, we're in the now, right? We talk about being in the now, and there's nothing but the now. So when we can access that, not be in the past or the future, but be in the present, that's a level of meditation, I'll call it. Like people think, oh, I can't meditate. I can't ever really just sit and leave my mind free. This is meditation, is just being present with what's going on right now in this moment. And I do that through music. You do that through poetry and storytelling. David does that through his storytelling. And Paul does that through his painting. I'm just picking out random people, but we all, when we're in the zone, the place where we create from, right? That to be is a meditative space. So when I can access that, and when the audience is observing someone being in the present, this is why people like to hang out with gurus and master meditators, master qigong masters, because these masters can lead us in that presence. I believe that musicians can do this as well. Artists can do this as well, because if we are present, then we can lead our audiences in being present as well. And that is it's a real gift that a lot of people feel that they can't access.
And I'm curious about this idea of master. You said, well, I'm not a master yet, but I've done all this work. Walter's not a master, or maybe he is a master. How important is that term? And is it overdone? Have we given it too much weight? I'm going to study with the master guru, and then I'll walk away with a feeling that's given to me because of the experience with the master. Whereas at the experience I had with you and Walter and David and Paul and the rest of us sitting around, and some other people that were local that were sitting with us that we knew, we experienced a collective mastery
Mm.
because we were sitting there together. That mastery may be something that is like the collective consciousness. If we participate in it, we're experiencing the mastery of of humanity, perhaps the mastery of infinity, the mastery of the universal presence.
Yeah, such an interesting topic, and you're making me think about that too, because we always aspire to something greater. Otherwise, why are we here, right? So we look to others for inspiration, right? If you want to be a better golfer, you observe a great golfer and you see, okay, what are they doing that's better than what I'm doing right now? How can I improve? How can I be more like them? And we don't necessarily want to be like them, but we want to be better than what we are in ourselves. And so this is an example of what we have to follow. So when I think about, some of the great masters that I have followed, some of the great singers of history, and I go way way back to the 1920s and some of the earliest recordings that we have. I listen to those singers, and they sing very differently than modern singers. And I just like that sound. I like the freedom and the ease and the simplicity of that. And so that's the level of mastery that I'm seeking as a vocalist. As a spiritual seeker, I look to the mastery of someone like Amma, the hugging saint, who I think she has that real humility that a true master has, because a master isn't necessarily about oh, here, I'm so good at this, I can bestow this upon you and you'll be better. A true master has true humility. So the spiritual masters that I have sought have that level of humanity and laughter and playfulness and sweetness. When mastery really comes through, it's effortless. The effortlessness in my singing that I seek comes from the practice, but also the letting go. That's the balance. We strive to something, but then we let it go so that the nature of pure mastery, divine inspiration, or the universal perfection of the way everything is as it is, to share with others, to create with others, to be in the presence of others.
As I'm sitting here listening to you talk about this, I'm doing an inventory of people that I have encountered who may or may not be masters. And it occurs to me, I haven't come across that many that I thought were masters. That's my lack, not because I haven't met a lot of people, or maybe I didn't know they were masters. You are saying that you have been around people who are masters. And I'm wondering, when you've been around these people, do they know they're masters? Or would they be having a conversation with us saying, gee, I need to find some masters myself? At what point does it stop, or does it ever? Are even the masters looking for masters?
Yeah, I'm sure they are. I would think so. There's always room for growth. There's always room for improvement, right? This is what we're doing. This is our soul path, is expanding and growing. Whether we need to meet a master, or whether we can find it within ourselves. And honestly, I think that's probably the best way to do it, is feel within and say, okay, I believe that I can do this. And it's great to have examples and people that we can look up to, but it's also really important to look up to yourself and to find within you the love, the self compassion, the self empathy, to not be perfect, to be where you are in the moment, wherever it is that you are in your journey. And if you feel like, okay, I have reached a certain level of mastery or refinement of this gift or talent that I've been trying to cultivate, I can feel good about this. I can get up on stage now. I can share this. I can have fun with it. I can mold it and meld it and try something new with it, and maybe throw it out completely and do something completely different. Within all of that, this mastery comes the freedom. So all that work I did technically to cultivate my voice, from that discipline comes freedom. Practicing, of meditating, of whatever it is you're looking to improve, comes, it emerges naturally, I think.
You clearly have spent a lot of time developing this. You have many more miles to go, and you are developing all the time. You're thinking about it. Where is it going to take me next? Dialing back to when you first started and keeping the idea of mastery in mind, I suspect there are people out there who would say that you maybe have approached mastery. Some might claim that for you, even though you might not
Mm,
claim it for yourself, or
mm.
you might. I don't know. There are beats along the way that take you in that direction of the horizon. We're always behaving in the direction of excellence. So, as you were moving through your career, do you have little stories, or do you have some stories you could tell about when you knew beyond a doubt that you had moved to another level and you felt
Mm.
it? What happened? Where were you? How did it look? How did you prepare for that? And then the payoff came when you knew it. Okay, I did well tonight. I hit the ball out of the park. Yes, that note was the note I wanted to give the people.
Yeah. So one of the earliest experiences was actually in my undergrad college. I've always been in a music program all through school. So when I was little tot, I, you know, rang bells in the bell choir. I sang. I learned the saxophone. I was in the marching band. I was in the jazz band. I was in the choir. I did all the musicals. It was anything musical I wanted to be a part of. So, I got into college. I got a great scholarship. I was like, okay, so the world is kind of saying, yes, you should be a singer. Go ahead, let's do this. And so in college, I got this solo in the Carmina Burana, which is a Karl Orff piece that probably everyone's heard, if even if they don't know the title of it, even if they don't know this piece that I'm speaking of, you've heard it. I guarantee you on commercials and TVs, and one of the great choral pieces ever written. And there are a few solos in it, and I was assigned one of the solos and I was super excited. It was in front of the whole entire campus. It was in the big theater. Everybody was coming. It was part of a celebration of anniversary celebration for the university. Big deal, and with orchestra, with uh, everybody was there. So I was really excited to be a part of this, and also at the same time trying to balance my mother's illness. She was dying of cancer, so I would go home on the weekends to be with her and then come back to school and do all my work, and then this particular weekend it was the performance weekend. My mother passed away that week, and everyone expected that I wouldn't be able to sing the solo, that I wouldn't be able to attend the concert, that I would want to be with my family, which I did. I did want to be with my family, but I also really wanted to sing. So part of the process of my mother passing away was me singing in this concert. When it came time for my solo to come up, and my mother's gone, my parents my would normally be in the audience. They never missed a performance of mine. My dad was not able to be there. My sister and my brother-in-law and their son Patrick wasn't able to be there, but I sang, and it was one of the highlights of my life because what happened was I felt this light come through me, and it was beyond a human experience. And I wouldn't say my mother came into the room that was the light of God. I wouldn't say any of woo woo, any, wacky spiritual spirit ghost thing happened. My heart opened and this light came through me. And what I remember of singing this piece was this utter perfection of that moment. And all of the sound, the vibrations of the violins, the chorus, the vibrations of the music, the vibrations of the people came and embraced me. And felt like I was floating in the air with this light and vibration of the moment. And it was beyond anything I'd ever experienced. It was a real enlightened moment, enlightening experience. And I've drawn on that for every performance since, because that is where I dissolved and the audience dissolved, the musicians, everything dissolved into this moment of perfect oneness.
That suggests something about mastery that's important. So it goes well beyond the notes you sing, something else out there, something you allowed, you invited, you were thrilled to experience, or maybe you were a bit stunned or afraid to experience. Whatever it was, you let it happen. So there was more to the art than just Deborah singing. And you took the stage at Leaf. You were there in a moment of what seemed like ecstasy for both of you. And I know that Walters does a lot of work around the gospel
Mm.
material. Walters has he's a lot of profound questions around spirituality that he's attempting to answer through his music. You stepped on that stage. You didn't just step up there to play with a guy who's playing music. You stepped up there with a fellow, and I've known Walter 20 plus years. We've had, I can't tell you how many hundreds of hours of conversations around what spirituality means, what God means. He's deeply involved in those questions. You entered those questions, but you also entered with your questions as well, and those combined on that stage. So to me, what you and Walter did at the Leaf Friday night concert was, without a doubt for me, in that moment, pure mastery.
Mm.
And your mother clearly was there, and Walter's family was there as well.
Yeah. And I think that's the moment of oneness that we all strive for. That's the meditative state. That is that connection with the collective consciousness. And I'm pointing to this part of my head because when I experience my awareness of being aware, pure awareness of being aware is really all we know. We don't know anything else other than through our senses, right? Other than through our touch, our sound, our hearing, our taste, our feeling. If all of that is an illusion, which it's been argued that it could be, right? Then the only thing that we truly know is that we are aware. And that sense of awareness is consciousness, the source of consciousness. Some people call it God, some people call it universal wisdom, some people call it enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. I think it's a universal experience for humanity, for humans. We are seeking that home. We'll call it home. And when I can access that through music, that's when I feel like the truest, most beautiful creation comes through me. And I'm a vessel, I'm a channel, I'm a oracle, whatever you want to call it. It's not me. So I am not the master. The master is singing through me. And in that moment, when two people come together, right? I think there's a line in the Bible, when two or more of you come together in my name, something like that, right? It's that kind of experience when we come together in that state of conscious awareness. We can be one. We can embrace each other. We can melt into oneness, into home. And that is what I strive to attain in all of my performances. And every time I go to practice, every time I go to perform, I say a little mantra or prayer or intention that says, may this moment serve my awareness so that I may serve others in their awareness.
Often in these conversations I have with folks like you, working at the level that you work at, eventually the word home comes out, as it did with you just now. Could you reflect on the nature of home and the sensibilities that the kind of commitment you have to art add to that sensibility? So it is true, when we were there at the Leaf concert and you were Walter's guest, I felt a sense of belonging. I felt a sense of home. I
Mm.
felt like I'm supposed to be here in this moment. So give me some sense of how you feel about home and what it means to you and how it fits in with your sensibilities around the art that you practice.
I so love that this is coming up right now because I have been kind of nomadic for the last couple of years, and I haven't really felt a sense of physical home outside myself home. Like, where do I call the place that I live? Is that home? I happen to be living in all these different places. I'm traveling all over the place. So I've been a little bit homesick, a little bit feeling like, where do I belong? How do I fit in this world? Where can I contribute? What does home really mean? And I've kind of been struggling with that question for the last couple of years. So I love that it's coming to this moment. And I almost answered my own question just this past moment ago, where home is actually in presence with the state of awareness. You can be at home anywhere if you can access that sense of, I am aware. And that sense of awareness has traveled with you since you were born. Well, we didn't consciously know it at the time when we were born, but that sense of awareness has not changed since the moment we were born, through our childhood, through our teenage years, through our 20s, 30s, 40s, wherever we are in our lives. That sense of, I am, I am aware, this connection to conscious awareness has not changed. Everything else has changed. Our bodies have changed. The politics have changed. The earth has changed. Weather, oh my God, the weather changes all the time, right? So the only thing that doesn't change is our sense of, I am. And that is home. That's what we're all looking for. And that's why people sit in meditation and want to experience that sense of I am at home. I am at one with all. I am dissolved into the allness of everything. That to me is the molecules, how molecules come together and create stuff, right? So then it's the allness of everything. And it's also the nothingness. So we call it different things, but once you have this experience, you know what home is. If I can help people experience that through my music, through my workshops, through my voice lessons, through my teachings, whatever I can, however that form can come, and everybody learns differently. Everybody needs a different path. Not necessarily needs a different path, but there are many ways up the mountain, but the top is the same, right? I'm sure you've heard that before. So how do we get to home? We have to go in. We have to go within, and then we can be at home anywhere.
I've heard people in the acting world say intimacy is into me see. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to invite you to see into me. And when I invite you to do that, it's a little bit vulnerable because I'm inviting you into those private spaces that I might want to keep private. Home also brings to mind the problems that we have in our culture around loneliness. Because when I feel like I don't have a place where I belong, I can be lonely. Can you reflect a bit on the relationship between the belonging that you feel or the belonging that we felt at Leaf when you and
Mm,
Walter were on stage? I felt like
yeah.
I was at home. I could have been in your living room, or you could have been in my living room. We were embracing each other. We were holding each other. We were in love,
Hmm.
in that beautiful sense of we were in it. We were in the love of the moment.
Yes.
Often at Leaf, they refer to Leaf love, but I love being in love because being in love with your sweetheart is a great thing. No complaints. But to be in love, to be
Yeah.
surrounded by it, that's home. Loneliness is part of that experience because we sometimes can reflect on our loneliness and have the contrast. Do you have any thoughts on loneliness at all? What is that? How does that factor in?
Yeah, for sure. So I love the concepts in Taoism where there's dark and light, the balance of the opposites, right? So we can't really understand love and home without feeling isolated and lonely. So this is why we live in a world of duality. We are learning from duality the sense of oneness. When I think about loneliness, it's such a human emotion. It's ripe with creativity. We can write about our loneliness. We can really dig into the what does it sound like? What does it feel like? And just let ourselves feel that sense of loneliness, the grief that comes from not being able to love the way we want to love. That's what the definition of grief is. And allowing ourselves to feel our feelings fully allows us to feel the opposite feelings as well. So if we allow ourselves the grief, the loneliness, the fear, the shame, all of that, and we don't deny it, we don't try to stuff it, we don't try to suppress it. We let it come through. We express it creatively. We don't necessarily foist it on another and expect them to fix us or help us, or we bring our grief to others for companionship or empathy, but we don't want to dump it on others and expect them to fix us. So when we do want to express these deeper, darker emotions or feelings, it's important to transmute them into something that we can, as artists, share with others so that they can feel loneliness, they can feel the empathy. This is why we love certain songs, that certain songs speak to us, certain poems speak to us, certain stories, movies, and others don't speak to us because we're in resonance somehow to what's being expressed. And if we can express and experience these emotions that we don't necessarily like. We'd love to push them away. We'd like to get rid of it. We don't want to feel sad. We'll hide our tears. We'll hide ourselves. Like you said, we hide the parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily want other people to see. That allowance of these emotions and saying they are so normal, they are so human, they are actually incredibly beautiful and ripe with creativity. If you can transmute them, then you can experience joy and love and elation and enlightenment and peace. Peace. You can experience all of this because you have come through the chaos, the turmoil, the sadness, the depth of human emotion to experience the other side. So that is what we're doing on this planet, I feel.
And I'm curious about loneliness even more that you've spoken to it a bit. And as you were talking, I thought of loneliness as a character that comes knocking at the door. Knock, knock,
Mm.
loneliness knocks at the door. And the best way to work with loneliness knocking at the door is to invite it in and let it tell its story. Come
Mm.
in, loneliness, to my home. We've
Mm.
arranged our homes so well that we have room now for you to enter and be part of where we live.
And now you have a companion.
I've not thought of loneliness as a valuable guest at the supper table. I've
Yeah.
often thought of loneliness as Charles Wright describes it in his poem Lonesome Pine Special. Some rundown cabin in the middle of Montana. You're hiking, you stumble on it. It's gloomy, and you look out the window of the cabin, and you feel the sense of loneliness crawling under the skin like a live thing, and
Mm.
the emptiness like a live thing beyond the window's reach and the fire's glare. So the loneliness is some enemy almost, the loneliness crawling under the skin. What if it's not the enemy? What
Yes.
if it's the emotional opportunity you have to enrich your life with a warmer hearth in the home because you have a new interesting guest?
Yes. Yes. I love that so much. And then you never have to be lonely.
Or if you do feel a bit of loneliness, you actually look at it a little differently, and it,
Yes.
it changes. So yeah, and
Yes.
in a way, if you have that
Love
look,
that.
you're right. You will never have to be lonely because you've changed its value.
Yes.
That's an interesting insight. We have just a few more minutes to go. So
Yeah.
in our last bit of time together, Deborah, I would like for you to tell us a bit about where you're going now. You are
Mm.
living in Santa Fe.
Mhm.
You have lots and lots of opportunities and connections and talented things to do. You do a lot of work. Tell us what your work is now, where you hope to take it, the kind of people that you're interacting with now, and where that might lead you in the next couple of years.
Mm. Thank you so much for asking that because I'm super excited about many, many things that I'm up to. And I have so many different concepts and ideas. And I have business plans I've written. And again, I get, woo, I like get up all in my head and I'm excited about everything. And so I've written out all these programs with the agendas and itineraries and blah blah blah. And now I'm at the stage where I'm just kind of letting it go and seeing what comes. And the concepts that I'm really working with, the goal, the mission is all the same in the various programs that I want to do. And what it is that communal creation. So create spontaneous creation with others through improvisation, through collective consciousness, right? So coming together in a sense of, okay, we're going to create something. We have no idea what it is. You're going to bring your talents or interests or whatever, a piece of paper, bring whatever it is you want to bring to this moment. We're going to tune into the land, the space, the air, the weather, the walls, the wood, the metal, the glass, everything that's in our environment. And then we'll tune into ourselves. And then we tune into each other and see what comes through in that moment. And it could be anything. And the bass line will be, when I say bass line, I mean literally like a musical bass line or rhythm or some sort of vibration that will help lift the entire creation. And when we come together in this sense of collective creation, we can create stuff that is way beyond anything that we could do by ourselves. And you inspire me and I inspire you. And oh, you did this. And what if we did that with what you just did? And so I'm working on this concept, and it could be held anywhere. It could be any age group, it could be any location, any level of talent or non-talent, or um, creative or non-creative. It can be for neurodivergent. It could be for um, anyone who, anyone. It can be for anyone. The program is very malleable, and so I just want people to rediscover their creativity. It's not as a skill, but as a state of being. And that deep healing comes when we stop performing and start communing.
And in the communal experience, we do what we naturally are born to do, which is to make things.
Yes.
I love this idea. The blank slate creativity week, where you really do come with a blank slate and you curate it with people who have a fair amount of skill, or maybe not, or maybe a mixture of both. I'm thinking of our friend Paul Pasquarella, who has a great deal of skill. I know people that don't have that much skill, or at least they don't think they do.
They don't think they do.
They don't think they do. And that's the key. That is indeed the key. But what's
You have to
strikes
get
me,
beyond the thinking.
well, yeah, no, we certainly do. Good God, that's please spare me, Navé. Here's, and we're getting very close to the end, but I just wanted to. I'm really, one of the things I've experienced with many creativity workshops that I've taught and writing workshops, and I love all the ones I've done, but I haven't come across very many, including the ones I facilitated, where you actually have a driving thing going on, where at the end you're going to have artifacts that will be presented. We're going to create something here, and we're going to call what we create at the end. That's going to be the art that we've generated from this collective energy. So you actually have something to show for it. And the drive throughout the whole week is to produce it so that it becomes a piece of art, whatever that is. So it's a collective piece of art that arrives at the end, generated by all these people, and you can claim credit for it in film, or maybe photographs, or maybe an art show. And combining all the skill guarantees that the material that ends up at the end of the week will have massive amounts of energy. It'll be really engaging, I would think. Is that where you're headed with this?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's really smart.
Yeah. And what's really important, like I said, is not the end product. It is the process for creating whatever it is we're going to create. So it doesn't matter what the actual creation is. It's the process for creating. It's the creative process.
So the whole process becomes the art form.
Yes, exactly. There you go.
Like the little woolly worm that becomes the butterfly.
That's right.
Oh, we're just little woolly worms at the end, aren't we, Deborah?
We are butterflies in the end.
In the end, we're butterflies. We're going to start
yes, in the beginning, we're started with woolly worms.
I like woolly worms. I've always liked
They're
woolly worms.
adorable.
What's wrong with a woolly worm?
Exactly.
So, Deborah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your life to come be with us. And
it's an absolute blessing. Thank you, Navé, for inviting me.
I really appreciate it. And we'll talk again soon.
I'll look forward to it. Easy travels.
And there you go, my friends. Thus concludes my conversation with Deborah Domanski. I hope you enjoyed what Deborah had to say. I've always been impressed with singers. I love the way Walter sings, and when Deborah and Walter got on stage, I was thrilled to hear them level up with such mastery. I've always been an off-key singer, so when I hear people who really know how to put the voice onto the right key and make a melody that just harmonizes the whole room, I'm quite appreciative of that experience. After the Leaf Festival, Deborah and David went back to Santa Fe, where they live, and I recorded this interview on Zoom at Lake Eden, and Deborah was in Santa Fe. And now I'm finishing up this show with my computer open, the evening upon me, and I am in Manila. I just arrived here about 5 or 6 hours ago, took a nap. It was probably a 32-hour flight from Asheville to Atlanta, Atlanta to Korea, Korea to Manila. One of the things about being in Manila, I'm warm. I like being warm. So being here and being warm, I'm visiting Tish. I'll be here till March 1st, so everything that I record henceforth for the next 3 months will be recorded from this area. I tell people I don't travel, I just change locations or I relocate, which is to say I'll find a coffee shop and sit down and do the work, or sit down at the desk where I am right now and do the work. Think about all of these things. Wonder about what comes next, that sort of thing regarding life. And I love to do this podcast, this radio show, and I'm grateful that WPVM-FM has aired this show in Asheville for almost 10 years, and KCEI, Cultural Energy Radio, has aired it out of Taos for probably the last 4 years. So it's been a real pleasure to be able to put these things together and think about what comes next. And I'm always looking for people and subjects to work with. So if you know anyone interested in being a guest on this show, having the stories aired over community radio, it is community radio after all. So we're there to serve the greater community, or really anybody that listens. So if you know somebody who'd like to do that, you can always reach me, Navé, at jamesnavé.com. I'm really curious about stories right now, more than I have ever been. Not storytelling, although I've always been curious about storytelling, but just what people have experienced and how they approach relaying or retelling that information to those who listen. And I'm also interested in almost anything anybody has to say about whatever they're thinking of. I believe now more than ever it is time for the people who want to lean in the artistic directions to do so. Jennifer Pickering and I are working on a book titled Live Life Like a Festival. And one of the ideas that I am exploring isn't so much how you live life like a festival, but how you bring the festive sensibilities, that gravitas of joy, of appreciation, of dreaming, to all of life, not just the moments when everything is fine, but to all of it. How can you have a sense of humor in situations that maybe don't appear at the very beginning to even have an opportunity for a sense of humor? And sense of humor doesn't mean that you discount the hard stuff. It just means that you take a lighter, less stressful view of something that you're going to have to deal with. That would be living life like a festival. And living life like a festival doesn't mean you have to do large things. For example, when you pause for a moment and do an inventory of your life, it's likely that you can come up with thousands of moments that qualify for your joy, sense of satisfaction, a warm feeling of anticipation, the smile that comes on your face when you sip a delicious cup of hot chocolate on an afternoon. One of the most common festive moments most people share is the exchange of smiles between strangers. So living life like a festival is a philosophical view of the world that allows room for looking at the world optimistically, even though sometimes you're looking at tough stuff. So when you factor in the range of the human condition, and then you also factor in the idea that you can bring a festive sensibility to your range, then that gives you one more tool. It allows you to view a circumstance, good or bad, from multiple angles that you might not have otherwise been able to employ. So when you bring this sense of festive, this sense of lightheartedness, this sense of attention, of joy, of curiosity to any situation, you're going to find your options will increase and your choices will become a bit sharper. And that's a good thing, I think, don't you? And on that note, we have arrived at the time to say goodbye. I appreciate you tuning in to Provocative Conversations from Twice 5 Miles Radio. I'm your host, James Navé. As I said earlier in this show, I've been airing on WPVM-FM in Asheville for almost 10 years and airing on KCEI, Cultural Energy Radio, in Taos for probably 4 years now. It's a real pleasure to be able to broadcast in both of those areas. I claim them both as home, and I'm grateful to have experienced both regions intimately. And I have gained so much from all the people that I know there. There's a fellow in Taos, his name is John, and I often run into John when I'm at the Drippolator coffee shop. And John's there often, and he's always drawing and writing in his journal. And he sees me and he says, "Oh, I love your show, man. Love your show." And he was once in Manila. So John always says, "I'm going to be listening for stories from Manila." So John, if you're listening, here's a story from Manila. I'm recording late at night in Manila, thinking about the times we've talked at the Drippolator in Taos. So I'm grateful to have this show. I'm grateful for Davine Dial. And I'm also grateful for Robin Collier and Mike Tilley, who's been there as long as Robin has. Those two guys really, really put their shoulders into the radio world, and we appreciate that, no doubt. So Walter Parks, thank you for our theme song, walterparks.com for more on Walter's music. And like I said a moment ago, if you know anybody who would like to be on this show, it is community radio after all, and I do enjoy having conversations with folks from all walks of life. So if you feel moved to recommend someone, maybe even yourself, Navé at jamesnavé.com. I'd love to hear from you. So there you go. We've arrived at the end. I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you do come back sometime soon. Till then, maybe I'll catch you on that turnaround somewhere down the line.